What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Player One versus the World. And for a new episode of Life After Strange, I have the absolute pleasure of bringing on Ted Jonas, who's going to put down law enforcement on this episode because he plays Officer Patrick Campbell in Life is Strange 2. Ted, how are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
No, of course, absolutely. Really humbled to have you here. We were talking about our facial hair before this episode because the pandemic is in full swing. And I've kind of like gone for the look, and I think Ted's beaten me with his mustache. It's incredible.
That's a pretty strong beard you've got there. But actually, I shaved before I did this. The last time I don't even remember the last time I shaved. Who has a reason to shave at all? Unless there's an audition or an interview like this. Like, I'm like, nah, it's just, lounging around the house. Like, maybe I'll shower, maybe I won't. Who cares? Nobody cares.
Exactly. Well, I checked mine because I haven't had a shave since December because we're in the UK. We've been in a lockdown since then. So, and we're in March as well at this point. So that's why I've got my facial hair. But as much as we can talk about facial hair here, I feel like we should switch this around because I want to talk about you first. We want to talk about Ted Jonas, the man himself, before we get anything Life is Strange 2. How did you end up becoming an actor? Because I looked through your resume. You've been through so many different roles. You've been in the industry for a while. What took you down this path that you went on?
It's my parents, really. My parents met. My first day was the Stratford Theatre Festival in Canada, which is kind of like the Broadway of Canada, I would say. They both theater when they were in college and high school. My dad is actually the theater director of, well, he's retired now, but he was the theater director of our high school, our small high school in Lancaster, Wisconsin. So I was doing, plays in elementary school, middle school, high school. And then really it's like, it sounds like a cliche, but when I first saw Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark on the USA Network, I was too young to see it in theaters, but I saw it on TV and I wanted to be Indiana Jones. Like, I checked out every book in the elementary grade school about archaeology. And then when I realized that you don't get a whip and a pistol, you get a paintbrush and you do a lot of dusting, I was like, oh, I want to be Harrison Ford. That's who I want to be. So that's like, honestly, like where it started. And I still want to be Indiana Jones. So if we can make that happen, I don't know who's watching, but that's what it is. And I went to the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. I got a theater degree, and then I moved to Chicago after that because that was like the biggest area, the closest big town I could go to with opportunities. Went to Second City there, which is a big improv school. Graduated from the conservatory there, and then moved to Los Angeles 4 years after that. So,
no, it's a really cool story. And obviously, when you mentioned Indiana Jones, I got your email and I saw when I saw the Indiana reference at the beginning, I was like, we have a man of culture here. So that's incredible. Yeah. But I have to ask you, you mentioned Harrison Ford. Like, what's your favorite film Harrison Ford involved in?
I mean, any of the first three Indiana Jones movies I'll take. Crystal Skull, I'm going to leave that one off the I mean, I will watch The Fugitive anytime it's on TV. Like, anytime. That movie is so good. Like, that's just a movie you can leave on anytime. Like, you're going to go do something, The Fugitive's on, you're like, I'm going to watch The Fugitive. I'll watch it through.
Oh, absolutely. Especially with the roles that you've played as well. Like, you kind of have to be a fan of The Fugitive.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy Lee Jones, come on, that movie's great. And they're all the Chicago cops, It's great.
No, fantastic. And I'm a huge fan of the Indiana Jones series. I love the first three, obviously, not counting the last one. But good choices all around. But Ted, as I said, like, we brought you on for Life After Strange, Life is Strange 2, Officer Patrick Campbell. How did you end up getting involved with this project? What was the audition process like?
I mean, so they didn't tell us. I wasn't aware of the game anyway, so they could have told me, but they didn't tell us. It was an audition for something that was called Orchid, I believe, is what like the code name was. I saw a breakdown for it on Actors Access, which is a casting website we have here, and I submitted. I sent in my reel, and I got a call. I went to an inauspicious casting office. It was like like a police interrogation room, oddly enough. And there was a guy on one side with some headphones and a microphone, put a mic in front of me, gave me some sides, and, we let fly. And then I can't remember. I feel like it was a while, but I didn't hear anything. Sometimes that happens. You just, most of the time you don't get the gig anyway, so you just don't hear. But sometimes, you'll find out a couple weeks later or something, got an email, cleared the dates, and then, just went in, did with it. It was a really good direction team. I'd done some video game work before. Like I'd worked on the Sony SOCOM, the Navy SEAL series. I'd done that. But this, that was more like action stuff. But this was like a more character role. So it was fun. And the direction was great. Very real, like grounded performances, which is good because, like, for me anyway, when I'm in the booth with the headphones on and you're watching things on screen, you're like, yeah, let's go big. Like, let's get after it. And they're like, yeah, let's go ahead and bring that back. You're like, oh, yeah, okay, all right, cool, sorry. But yeah, it was fun.
No, that's really cool. And I expected it to be that kind of story because I know that because these games are heavily NDA protected, most of the people don't know what characters they're playing or like what franchise they're affiliated with. But, this character, Officer Campbell, appeared in episode 5. And, whilst the game was coming out as episodic, did you have any idea what the Life is Strange franchise was before this or when you learned what it was? Are you a gamer?
I do play video games. I have an Xbox and a PS4 at the moment. I play mostly like first-person shooter games, action games. So like right now I'm playing Warzone, like everybody, I guess. I'm getting crushed in that game lately too. It's annoying. I wasn't aware of it. Even while I was recording, they didn't tell me what it was. Like until maybe like the second time I went in, they showed me like a trailer for like what they were doing, just like for some context, because there's the supernatural element to it. But my character was like the scene I read was, I think the scene I read was when he's first interrogating the boy when he brings him in. But, then I got the rest of the scenes where it's like, you're at the border and there are the people that are the immigration officers that are, being racist. And so it was a lot more complex than like it first appeared to be. Like once and I don't see everybody else's, they don't give you the entire script. They just give you your lines and then they'll be, this person's going to say that, you say this line 3 times, like give it 3 takes. So the character turned out to be a lot more interesting than it would have first appeared. I mean, it was still a good part, but there was just more to it, like more layers. So that was interesting for me personally as an actor. And then, one of the directions they give you too is, I think for most people is like, you're the racist cop. So it's kind of like what you think you're playing, but it's more like the direction that I got was more that you want the best outcome for this kid. This is just a kid. Like that's the way you see it. And you're in a position of authority, but you're not here to like slam this kid. Like you're here to like, tell me the truth, help me, like don't make this worse for yourself. Like let's just get you out of this with like the least amount of trouble possible. So that gives you like another interesting avenue to go down, as to create a character is like, now you're someone that's not just one note. You're a real person. So, that's more interesting.
No, you're absolutely right on with the character. Like, we'll dig into that a bit more. But before we do, I can base that you probably saw the character, what he looked like the first time when he appeared in the episode 5.
Yeah, they showed me, I think maybe on my last day of recording or second to last day, they showed me what it looked like, which is cool. I mean, he doesn't really look like me or anything, but it looks cool. And it's cool to like, they're pumping your voice through the character and you're like, sweet, that's me, So that's a fun thing to get to happen, see yourself as a video game character.
Oh, absolutely. And I said to you before this, we started as well, if you had your mustache, you would have been even better because it's just missing that thing.
They could fix it in post, right? We get a petition going. It's maybe, or like, we don't know what happens to my character. He's smashed against the wall. Maybe he comes back in Life is Strange 3 or 4. He's got a handsome mustache,
Well, you never know, so let's hope so. And if he does, I hope he does come back with facial hair. Um,
Yeah.
but Ted, one thing
It's
I wanted
the
to
only way
mention
I
is,
will come back. It's the only way I'll come back. But just
we'll have to start a petition up, like no doubt about that. So, Ted, you mentioned it before, and I was going to bring it up as well. You got past VO experience with SOCOM. I know a lot of some of the actors who come onto these projects have no VO experience, but you have that. How was it? How important was it to have like that experience prior to this role, and like especially in the military setting that it is that kind of game, and then you transition to the copper role in this one?
I think it helps. I mean, it definitely helps. Experience, I think, is the most important part about it. I think for anything, like, you know, your first commercial audition, you're nervous because it's your first commercial audition. Your first film audition, you're nervous because you just don't have the reps. With VO, I think because you're all by yourself, you know, you're in a booth, and everybody's listening to you, and it's all you. It can be a little claustrophobic, or I think it could be intimidating if you're not like comfortable with just knowing that it's like, because like for this project, like the directing team was in France, right? Yep. So there's the direction in the sound studio that we're recording in, and then I'm also being talked to from people in France. And so it is about you and your portrayal of character, but it's also about like, you don't know the story. So there's no reason to get up in your head because they're trying to find something and guide you in the right direction. So just accept this for what it is and be like, try your best. Don't take it too hard on yourself. Like, okay, we need to do more takes. So what? You're sitting in a booth with a baseball hat on and a cup of coffee. Like, this is the easiest payday you could possibly get. So the experience is important, but that's just helps you be comfortable and just be like, okay, this is what we're doing. So just do it the best we can.
Oh, no, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And I like that you mentioned the fact that in the booth, you had the direction from the French team and from Dontnod on in like a Skype call, I imagine, which is normally what happens. And you had direction in the booth. And in the booth, you would work with Philip Bache, the VO director. And you mentioned about it before. It was a really good experience. But, take us back through that experience, bringing the characters to life. What was it like just generally working with someone like him? He has such a revered reputation with every actor I've ever spoken to on this series.
He was fantastic. He made me feel like he's got I've never met him before working on this, but he has a very, like, you can see him thinking, like when you talk, like you can see on his face where he's like, yeah, or he's like, let's do it this, like, let's, try this. He gave me a very like good direction where like when he would say something, you go, oh yeah, yep, that's 100% right. Sometimes you might disagree with something. You're like, well, I want to do this, but like, he's one of those people, like, you just, again, I think because he's done so much of this, he knows what he's doing so well that, like, when he says it, it comes, there's no, like, I want to show you I'm in charge or something. It's just like, he knows what he's doing. And when he says it, it just sounds true because it is true. So you're like, yes, that is way better than what I was doing. I'll go ahead and do that. That'll make me look better. So yeah, it was good. Like I said, like he brought that character like back down to earth, like, bring it in. He gave me a nice compliment. He said, he's like, he thought I should do the voice of Superman if they did like an animated Superman thing. And I was like, I'll take it. So that's cool. And they're rebooting that franchise. So if they want to go another way, I'm available. Yeah, it was a really good, like, working environment.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I love the compliment. I love your confidence of just putting yourself out for Superman, because absolutely, you should definitely.
Yeah.
I guess it's the advice I always get from every actor who comes in the series, and they talk about, what's the advice you'd give to young actors? Like just put yourself out. It's like, take the rejection. You might get no gigs. You might get like 5 gigs. It's like, just accept it. But no, really nice compliment from him. And I imagine because Officer Campbell's in one episode, was it just one studio session that you did with them, or was it more than one?
No, we did a couple. I think we started with the border scene first. This was like 2 years ago. So, I think we started with that when we did that scene, and then we did the interrogation scene next, and then there's when all the supernatural stuff, when they break out, we did that last because there's a lot more just just like silly stuff you have to do in the booth. Where you're like, you know, like they're like, all right, now you're being slammed against the wall. So it's like, now you're sliding down a wall. Just like, you know, ridiculous stuff like that. Like it's super fun, but it's silly. So we did that. You know, they're saving your voice too. If there's like, you know, for physical things like that, like sometimes you're going to be yelling. So they save it, you know, and it's also like, you know, they're working on a production schedule, so we need to get somebody else in. We can not, and because we're working with people I think they were in Paris, but in France, you know, they're 8 hours ahead of us. So, you know, depending on my schedule, like they might be like, okay, we have free time available on Thursday at this time. Can you be there? I can't. I have something else. Like I'm shooting something or I have an audition. I'd be like, I could be there at 5 p.m. Well, you know, it's 1 o'clock in the morning in France. So that might not work. Or sometimes they would stay up, you know, they would just work through the night. So, yeah, it was multiple sessions. And we shot it like we recorded at a couple different studios in Burbank and then one in, I think they were all in Burbank. But yeah, a couple different studios, but it was a good experience.
No, it sounds about right. And I've heard that the developers in Dontnod, they are based in France, and they would stay up for like late sessions and be there for like majority of the voiceover sessions. But before we leave the booth at this point, I want to ask you, what's your favorite memory from the booth? Like standout memory? Was it that kind of like final segment where you were filming all the noises, or was there a certain point that you really enjoyed recording?
I can't remember the exact lines, but I remember we went back and we'd recorded it already, but it's when there's the part where my character's talking about like I think it's a robbery at a gas station. I think that happens. And there's a little bit of a crime spree that's going on, and he's putting it together, and he's like, he wants him to tell the truth, but he's also like, he's trying to figure out if this kid is good or bad or what's really going on here. I just remember we went back and we recorded that, and I got directions from Philip that really made that scene more complex than I originally played it. And it's like one of those, it's like I was saying before, like when he gives you something, like you're like, ooh, okay. Oh, yeah, that'll be interesting, you know? So it was just like, acting wise, like it was just finding another layer that maybe I didn't see there originally. And like, he helped me find, and then you go, oh yeah. Oh, that felt good. You know, like when it's right, it feels right. So just being able to like find another layer, like, you know, somebody helping you, like directing you in the right direction. That and the Superman compliment. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And with this as well, we'll leave the booth, but I kind of wanted to mention it, and I mentioned it at the beginning in terms of you've been in the industry for a while. And when I was flicking through IMDb, I saw a lot of roles in detective, law enforcement. This is a role that's kind of like, you know, second nature to you. It fits like you like a glove. Like, I just kind of wanted to know, how was the differing was this experience compared to all those other roles that you've had? You've worked in the gaming side of police, like a police officer. You played someone in TV in law enforcement. Well, how different are these experiences, like looking back on them now?
This is a much richer character than you're normally going to get to play. Like, you know, unless you get a role on like Law and Order or something, you know, where it's a recurring character. Like, honestly, video games are probably like the new television, the new film sort of venue, I think, because like just the nature, everybody plays video games now, and it's long form. You can get into characters and story arcs and follow people. It's just a much more well-written sort of, and like a chance to have an arc and go through something. And it's fun to be on the video game side of it, to like have people are going to get to like watch you and play you. They're not really playing me, I guess, but you know, it's an interactive experience. So it's just, you know, you're playing like a military character or a cop. Like a lot of times, just like you're just being the tough guy. You know, it's just, you better watch it. I know, it's stuff like that. Where this was more of a, I mean, those are real people too, but this is a more complex character to play.
Oh, absolutely. And I completely agree with you. And I'll pick you up on that in a little bit, because I just kind of want to focus on one thing. It's one of my favorite questions to ask, and it's twofold. So what is your favorite thing about Officer Campbell and why? And is there anything you wish that the developers maybe had focused on a bit more? If you had if you could pitch them something to kind of like, this is what I wanted to see a bit more of the character.
Like his dating life. Like throw me like a really good looking animated character. I mean, I think I like, as I repeated, it's like just the nuance of Campbell. I like that guy. I like the guy that they wrote. I feel like that he was written that way, and like I feel like that's what comes across. He's a genuine person. I think he's one of the good guys. I mean, I don't. The mustache, I guess they could have added the mustache. I mean, what else? Otherwise, you know.
Oh no, absolutely. I hope they add that mustache in the remastered version or the ported version they bring out. But you know, this will kind of like overlap because we have talked about it. But I kind of wanted to bring up, you know, you mentioned that fact that he's kind of torn when he's talking to Sean. Like, you know, he wants to see if he's a good kid, if he's not a good kid, and he has like a moral compass a bit. Like they didn't just, for me, like the cliche representation of like from the developers wasn't just like, oh, he's just a cop who's going to be an arsehole necessarily. They kind of like put a bit more kind of like flavor towards him. And obviously, as I said, you played all those different varying cop roles and like different law enforcement roles. Were you surprised that developers took this way with like making him nuanced and kind of like giving him that extra layer of being like just more than a cop, someone who can kind of show empathy, but also retains that kind of like fact that he is a cop and he needs to maintain his like law enforcement duties as well?
100%, yeah. Because at the audition, like, I mean, the way I read it was like he's kind of an asshole. Like it's the interrogation scene. It looks like this is going to be about race and the border, which is a genuine, you know, that's genuine. But it also looks like, okay, this is the story we're going to tell. Like I'm going to be the asshole. Which whatever, gig, it's fine. I was very surprised when I got in the booth and saw the rest of it, because like I said, it's not just the tough guy, you know, he's a real person. He's like, it's, you know, he's whatever, he's a video game character, but the character feels like a real person, instead of a one note, you know, just rough him up and like, hey, listen to me, kid, you know. So yeah, I was very surprised and pleased too, because it's just a richer experience overall.
Oh, absolutely. And whilst we're on Life is Strange 2, we're coming towards the end of like talking about Life is Strange 2, but I have to ask you, have you played through Life is Strange? Have you watched all of Life is Strange at any point since this game came out?
I haven't. I watched a little bit of a playthrough on YouTube that somebody did, just to see what my character was up to, you know. So I saw some of that, but I haven't played the game myself. Like I said, okay. I'm a shooter, first person shooter sort of video game guy. So.
Oh no, I respect the honesty. I always have like actors sometimes saying like, I've never played a video game. I'm like, it's your job as an actor. You don't necessarily have to play video games. And obviously, as you said yourself, like you're a Warzone man. You're like more of a shooter, shooting kind of like gamer. So that's all fair play. But like, you know, before we go on to that, what did you think of Life is Strange 2 when you kind of learned the overall like picture of it? You said you saw the trailer when they showed you in the booth, and like generally, what was the thought of like this feeling of this game that you got involved with?
I thought it was an interesting way to talk about race relations, immigration, like an interesting way to talk about a subject that could be ham-fisted or, you know, just beat you over the head with like, this is what's wrong, this is what's right. This was an interesting way to get in and talk about something while still having an entertaining story. And like, I think it's smart to use children as the main character because children are innocent, you know, just by the nature, like they're innocent. So everything put on them is like put on a blank canvas. It's what's happening to them. They're not doing it. So I think it's an interesting way to talk about what could be a very heavy subject, and do it in a enlightening but entertaining way.
Oh, absolutely. And I completely agree with it. And the topics that it covers, like, you know, we're only 3 years away since the game was released, and the stuff that it covers is so relevant to its time period. Well, we'll move away from Life is Strange too. But I kind of wanted to ask you, what's life been like since Life is Strange 2? We're obviously in a pandemic, but like, what have you been working on since then, maybe even before the pandemic side? Anything that's stood out for you since that experience on Life is Strange 2?
What have I been working on? Well, I've shot a bunch of commercials. I recorded an audiobook during the pandemic. I did the voiceover for a independent filmmaking audiobook. So that was an experience. I have three younger brothers, Adam, Ben, and Willie. Willie's my youngest, and he's a writer as well. And we just wrote the Snyder Cut. Zack Snyder's Justice League cut is coming out tomorrow. We wrote a video essay sketch about dissecting the Snyder Cut. If you want to watch that, that's on my Instagram page. My link, I am Ted on Instagram. Clever, I know. But yeah, it's a little, it's a humorous take on the Snyder Cut. So we wrote that, and my brother Willie shot that in Chicago. And yeah, I've been doing a lot of writing lately. Willie and I wrote a animated pilot. It's kind of like Cheers meets The Fugitive. Takes place in a bowling alley. So I'm sitting down with my management company on Monday to discuss that, actually. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, you know, gigs here and there. I didn't play a cop, but I worked on the show 911, playing a delivery driver, where a guy crashes through my truck. That was cool. But it's funny to see like the things that like pop on IMDb when like you get a huge spike and like who's looking at it, and you're like, I don't watch 911. I hadn't seen the show, but you know, you get booked on things, and then it's just like all these people check it out. And you're like, oh, that is a popular show, huh? You're like, I had no idea. You're like, okay. So yeah, like, you know, little TV gigs, film gigs. I've got a couple of things that I worked on that I think are coming out this year that I recorded a couple of years ago. Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much it.
No, that's really cool because, like, I have to ask you as well. You know, we're in the middle of the pandemic, and you're a writer. You've worked on other projects outside of acting. You're not necessarily just an actor. But have you found that kind of like, obviously, we know people have like lost so much in the pandemic, and it's kind of like affected different people. But as an actor, do you think the main thing for you is always to kind of be creative, keep yourself going, and kind of explore new ideas? That's kind of like helped you keep going in the middle of like maybe not getting any work, or kind of like how the industry's kind of grounded a little bit.
Yeah, I find like, I think we all, pandemic or not, I feel like you get stagnant, you know, you could be doing more always. I mentioned that I did Second City, and my brother Willie did that as well. And so I've kind of gotten back to, you know, we'll write things that are TV ideas or film ideas, and we'll write those, but you need somebody else to help you make that. You know, you need a studio and a bunch of money. So what we've been trying to do lately is write things like this Snyder Cut sketch, where it's things that we can actually make ourselves just to get done. And that has been really helpful, I think, because you can turn an idea around in a week and then be like, all right, let's film it in 2 days. Like, just get a couple of buddies together, shoot the thing, and get that done. So yeah, we've been working on just little ideas like that, sketches more than like big projects, just to stay active. And I feel like you don't always, I mean, writing is tedious too, you know, like, but if you can find, I would say our brand is really stupid, smart stuff, where it's incredibly silly and dumb humor, but it's about kind of a smarter subject. Like this Snyder Cut thing his next project was going to be Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead. And I just could not believe that the guy that directed 300 was going to direct The Fountainhead. I just found that humorous. I personally love that book. I know a lot of people think it's, I don't know, some sort of right-wing talking point. I just like the character of Howard Rourke. I love that sort of like, I love art, and that's what I'm going to do. But I was like, oh man, like, is Howard Rourke just going to be jacked? Just like his shirt off the whole time, just chiseling away at buildings. So that was like just something stupid, but about like kind of a smart subject. But I think it's fun to like just find something that you find so stupid that you're like, this is so dumb, but it makes me laugh, and be like, yeah, let's see if we can find anything in there that's worth making. So I think that's been like positive, at least.
Oh no, absolutely, and yeah, I completely agree with Zack Snyder as well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what that movie would look like. Like, there's going to be a monster or something that like climbs out of one of the buildings. Like, I don't know. It's just, it's
got
interesting.
such a no, yeah, he's got such a very distinct style, Zack Snyder, and obviously like stuff I've watched, where it's like Watchmen and like Man of Steel and stuff like that. And you watch it, and you're like, if he goes and does that, it's gonna be so different.
Yeah.
But Ted, actually, like before we move on a little bit, I kind of wanted to ask you. You know, you had that experience in Life is Strange 2, SOCOM, VR roles in gaming. Have you auditioned for any more VR roles in gaming since Life is Strange 2?
Yeah, I mean, especially like because everybody's stuck at home. Like, there's been a ton of voiceover. I recorded a trailer for a movie thing. I don't think I've done any other video game work, but you know, I've auditioned, there's been auditions to do like, you know, the Siri voice and things like that, which are always interesting when that comes across. You know, they ask you to like, they need like a sample of basically everything that anybody could ever say.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're like, sing a song and do this and count, you know, and say something in French. Excuse me. So you'll do, you know, do things like that. I've had a bunch of like voiceover auditions. I think the trailer is the last thing I did. And then I recorded the book a couple months ago. But yeah, I mean, I'm always down for voiceover work. Like I said, it's the best payday. It's the easiest work. Like, you don't have to do anything. Just get in the booth.
I can imagine so. And, you know, I have to ask you, Ted, like, you're still young, career's going. Who would be the dream actor for you to work with, and why?
Oh man, well, Harrison Ford. I would love to work with Harrison Ford just because, you know, he's like, it's the reason I got into acting, really. I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis. I can't go wrong. There Will Be Blood is maybe my favorite movie of all time. Like, when I saw the movie in the theater, like that No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood came out like the same year, maybe the same month. I saw both those movies in the same theater, and like I was changed after that. Like, after I saw There Will Be Blood, like, I'm a very confident person. Like, there's almost nothing I don't think I could do. I'm like, I could do that. I could do that. I saw Daniel playing the role. I was like, I'm not that good. I'm not as good. Which is, I think it's good to admit that, because you're like, I could get better. Like, look what he's doing. Like, I need to get better.
I completely agree with you, but the only thing is, like, in terms of, I wouldn't bring yourself that much time, because when you look at Daniel Day-Lewis's resume and some of the roles he's done, where it's like Lincoln, In the Name of the Father, the ones that you've mentioned, it's like, you're like, then you kind of do have, it does kind of like make you feel like that. So I kind of completely understand in terms of like, you're like, wow, he's an incredible actor.
Yeah, and he makes shoes.
Very true, very true. So I'm going to flip that again, that question, and I'm going to say, who would be the dream director to work with, and why?
I mean, PTA, Paul Thomas Anderson. That'd be amazing. I mean, like, I got to work. I worked in this movie called All the Way with Bryan Cranston, and I was
Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, he is exactly as awesome as you'd hope he'd be. Like, he's the best. Like, we were working. I was my first day on set. I was sitting in the makeup trailer, and you know, there's a big mirror, and he just walks in behind, grabs me by the shoulder. He's like, "Who's this young fella?" And you're like, "Awesome! This is awesome." And then in that movie, I'm playing a Secret Service agent. JFK has just been shot, and I'm in the hospital. I'm crying, and we're in there doing rehearsals, and I start crying. Like, I'm getting ready. Cranston's not there yet, you know, because he's the star. They're gonna bring him on when they're ready to go. And he's walking by me, and he stops, and he's like, "Are those real tears, kid?" And I'm like, "You can taste them if you want, Brian." He just goes like this. He just hits me in the chest and goes, "Good for you." And I was like, "Daddy?" I was just, you know, my heart was bursting out of my chest. Like, made me feel so good. And that, Jay Roach directed that, and he directed Austin Powers and things like that. I worked with him on The Brig before. And he's great. Like, I was in one scene in that movie, and he and Brian, like, they're like, had me sit down in a room for a scene I'm not even in. They're going through, well, I was thinking maybe we'd shoot it like this, or this would be the direction. And Cranston's, I thought maybe we'd do it like this. And then they turn to me and they're like, what do you think? And I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean what? That just doesn't happen. Like, that's just not how it works. And they're like, yeah, what do you think? Like, how do you think? And I'm like, okay, like, if, this or that. But it was just nice to be involved, like, that they even, like, asked. And with that, too, is like, so Steven Spielberg, his company, Amblin Entertainment, produced that movie. Mm-hmm. So when I auditioned for the part, and then I got the email saying I booked it. I got an email from Amblin Entertainment, and I was at my buddy's place, and I go, E.T. just emailed me. I was like, I got it. And everybody's like, yeah, they cheered it. But it was like, just to get something from, like, Steven Spielberg adjacent, you're like, I mean, we all grew up, like, with Steven Spielberg movies. Like, that was a huge deal for me. I was like, can I swear in this?
Yeah, of course you can.
I was like, holy shit. It's just like one of those moments where it's something that you, like, dreamed about when you were a child. Like, you're like, oh, I'm that close. Like, I'm that close. Like, he definitely saw my work, whatever. I'm in one scene, but, it's just like, it's just a nice moment to have.
Oh, no, it sounds like an incredible experience just from that, like, Spielberg moment, and obviously to Bryan Cranston as well. I watched Breaking Bad, like, years and years ago, and, like, that for me, where I was, like, stapled him as, like, what an incredible actor, from going from Malcolm in the Middle to Breaking Bad. It's like an unbelievable Yeah, absolutely.
It's just awesome because he's just as cool as you'd hope he'd be. Like, that's just the cherry on top.
Oh, absolutely. Because one of my favorite clips of Bryan Cranston is online, where it's like a convention and he dresses up as Walter White. So with, like, the bald cap and everything else, and he walks around the convention, and people doesn't realize it's Bryan Cranston, because it's like, it must be a cosplayer. And then he just walks into this into, like, the conference hall and sits down, and everyone looks at it. It's like, oh, so it actually is Bryan Cranston. Yeah. So that's obviously really cool, and great choice from the directors. Well, we're going towards the end of this, and I have to ask you, it's one of my favorite questions. Life is Strange has a potential TV show in the works. We don't even know what's happening with this TV show, whether it's going ahead or not, we don't know. While I know you would love to play Officer Campbell in the show, you're not allowed to. So instead, I'm going to put you in the role of the casting director. Who would you cast for this role, and why? I'll give you free budget as well. You got a Netflix budget.
Well, let's see. Is Daniel Day-Lewis available? He's not. He's booked. Who would I cast? Sam Rockwell would be pretty good. Mm-hmm. They could maybe get him. I mean, I'm a big Christian Bale fan, but I don't think they could get him, probably.
Yeah.
I
don't think I've seen many Christian Bale roles where he is a copper. Or has he been a copper?
Well, Batman's kind of a cop, I suppose.
It'd be an interesting role to cast him in that as a copper. Like, you'd get a different Christian Bale.
I don't think he has played a police officer, has he? I mean, he's in Harsh Times. He's an ex-military guy.
He's kind of like...
In Harsh Times, he's a retired military guy with PTSD, and he's signing up to be like Homeland Security. Right. But he can't pass the P test. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. I don't know. I mean, we could go with Cranston, He could do it.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Very good shout. And I'm happy to end the question there. But Ted, we're at the end of the show. I always let my guests have the final say here, and they send a message to the Life is Strange community. I'll let you take the floor from here.
Thank you for playing. Thanks for letting me have a job, being a part of this. I honestly had no idea about this series, this game, before I got this role. And then once you look into it, you're like, oh, people love this. Like, they love this game. And it's just nice to be a part of something that people enjoy, be a part of people's lives. And like I said before, like, the video game experience is an interactive experience, especially with a game like this. So just to be able to like, while I'm not technically there with the people, just to be able to interact in some way is like, it's just very cool. And I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you very much for a wonderful message. And I think that's how we'll end the show. So guys, I hope you enjoyed watching the episode. If you did, please like, subscribe, and comment on my YouTube video. It really does help with the channel. Ted, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. I'm really happy to have you on here as well to talk about your role in Life is Strange 2. And I wish you the best of luck with the rest of your career as well going forward. Hopefully in another Life is Strange game with Mustache, Officer Campbell. We can only hope. But yeah, guys, stay tuned. There'll be more episodes to come in this series. I had a wonderful guest on today. There'll be more to come. So yeah, stick around. There's more Life is Strange content to come. See you later, guys. Bye.
Thank you.